Cool. So, still catching up on some stuff. We made some pretty big changes to how we're going to be operating the business going forward. And so, when we got back to Perth, I would have liked to have already caught up, but still like 4 or 5 days behind recording. And because we had a wedding over this weekend and a few things with the kids we wanted to, I guess, keep on top of. Yeah, and a few other. This weekend was last weekend just been. It was a write-off. So this morning I'm going to be catching up on the last 4 or 5 days or whatever it is, just to bring up to pace to today. So so today, so starting with the day after we got back from Perth, we officially it was our first day hitting the gym. Now a good friend of mine, he's quite well versed in the world of fitness and he's played at a professional to the point you get getting paid as a professional to play golf, and quite well. And so I was speaking with him around because he's very fit and he incredibly well disciplined. Hey, he's one of those people I'd certainly take a lot of. I look at a lot of areas of life and I go, yeah, like I know I can learn from you. And so speaking with him, I'll probably start gymming with him when I've finished this month with F45. And so we started gymming, and he was saying, he's like, like first things first, just get used to moving your body again. The last thing you want to do after being, for the most part, sedentary? That's not the right word, whatever. Stationary and for the most part not moving for the last best part of a few years. The last thing you want to be doing is just coming in hot and, injuring yourself, especially being in my 30s and that now. So I was anticipating while we were in Perth being able to go for a few runs, but I was still recovering from the vasectomy, so just didn't have the capacity to do that. And I was like, you know what, I'm here with the kids, running around, playing with the kids and that sort of thing anyway, so at least I'm not just sitting down doing nothing and stuffing my face full of food. So it was good. So first day back, F45, I think it was the Wednesday from memory, got me, man. It was, it hurt. It was a good one. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a psychological thing or if it's genuinely something that's like, quote unquote, wrong with me. But I always, if I push too hard, I chuck really easy. And anyone who's trained with me has seen it in full force. And it's like it's coming and it's coming and it's coming, and then it's a power chuck. It's is it embarrassing? I wouldn't say it's embarrassing, but it's frustrating for sure, just because, it's debilitating. Anyway, so I came back home, Beck shot off to the gym, so I've been going at 4:30, and I'll come home just after 5:15, probably 5:20, tag out with Beck. Beck goes at 5:30, she comes back, and we start the day, spend a bit of time together before the kids get up, and kind of either pray or meditate or something like that. But spend some time together and just kind of set the day up. And and then just kind of strategize how we're going to tackle the day, So jumped in the ice bath, and man, it was good. So good. I miss my ice bath, and this is going to be a thing going forward. I was able to spend a bit of time with Sterling. It was really nice. Obviously Beck's not there, so I was able to just kind of hang out with him for a bit, and just grabbed him in, chucked him in bed with me, and we just kind of hung out and spent a bit of time, which was really cool. And one of the things that I've kind of noticed is that, like, the more that I love myself and show discipline in my actions through the act of self-love through the act of discipline, the more I have the capacity to give love to those around me and to Beck and the kids, and I'm a lot more grounded and everything else when I'm disciplined, and not necessarily with respect just to fitness, but with like how I'm thinking and how I'm approaching things, and actioning tasks and all this. It's really cool to see. So so I started. I guess this week was the first week where Beck's felt settled enough with Sterling and the other girls, because we've got Lexi's 6 and we've got 4 kids. So it's no tall order. Oh, sorry, it's a tall order, and sure, like oh yeah, well, back in the day, 8 kids, 12 kids, whatever, like that was the norm. We've got mates of ours with quite a few kids, but at the same time, they've got a lot of hired help, and not to discredit or not to diminish the I guess the I don't even know how to phrase this right. But I'm sure you can kind of pick up what I'm saying. Like I don't want to like say that like parenting's any easier, because parenting's bloody hard, But when it comes to the day to day, like keeping on top of stuff and, just having everything ready and, looking after the kids and all that time, like it used to be a village, and it's not. So I'm conscious that right now, like sure, yeah, we've got some help around, like obviously, Beck's folks are, they're really accommodating and very helpful, and we've got some family and friends are more than happy to help, which is really, really valuable. But for the most part, like I'm conscious that Beck and I are the village for our family, and that if I just abdicate my responsibilities to Beck and just say, all the best, good luck, and, it's your job, it's going to turn into a shit show. So I'm very conscious that I don't just, wash my hands of the day-to-day responsibilities of the family. I certainly would like to get to a point where we do have, I guess, a bit of hired help in the sense of, I guess keeping on top of the cleaning and, just general stuff around the yard. Like that'd be really great. But yeah, we'll see. It's in the pipeline for the future, but we'll just see how it goes. So, yeah, so anyway, I say all that to say that this is the first week I've actually really I felt like I've had the capacity, and Beck's had the stability to be able to, tackle 90% of what the kids need. And so that I can tackle the work that needs to be done. And there's a lot of project work. Like we've certainly got a clearer idea of where to go next with the business. And, and it feels good. So that's kind of how I started. And I've been really, really intentional about pretty much running my life off my calendar. And at the end of every day, the tasks that accrue over the course of the day, then they get scheduled into tomorrow. So then tomorrow, again, like I'm able to start the day, strategize, crack, let's go, rather than, just being at the mercies of whatever demand pops up at the time. So yes, that was good. One of the things that I did do, because obviously first day back, there's shit everywhere. So I just went through and tidied up the whole house. Beck and I, we tackled that, clothes, washing, got on top of the dishes. It just made put the house in order so that we can actually focus. And that was good. So next thing that I did was I had a session with Niro, this coach that I've been working with. And one of the things that came up when we were in Perth at this workshop was that, I'm already someone who really, I do appreciate a good bit of philosophical literature. I find psychology really interesting. And the more I understand it, I really genuinely think everything is psychology. Management psychology, leadership psychology, marketing is, finances, like everything. Like people... things, well, I'd say with exception to, nature and animals and all that sort of stuff, when it comes to anything that is in our society, like, interpersonal relationships, be it whatever capacity that is, finances, skills, all these sorts of things, like they don't exist in a vacuum. They're connected to people, and people are the things that make them move. Like money moves because of the decisions people make. People spend their energy and show up in certain ways because of the decisions that people make. And so that's where I find this super, super interesting, And one of the things that I've found really good about Niro is that he has spent a lot of time really diving deep into how people think, and yeah, listen, psychology is going to be a forever unfolding thing. I don't think we're ever going to really reach the end of understanding what drives people, but do we have a very good understanding of some foundational principles? Yeah, for sure. And what I have learned is that there's a lot of people trying to describe the same thing, but from different perspectives, So You might have someone who's looking at for whatever reason, a wheelie bin came to mind. So I'm just going to run with that. Someone might be looking at the wheelie bin from behind, and you can see a handle and some wheels and all that sort of stuff from the top, and you can just see the bin and it's more square. From the front, it looks a lot sleeker and everything else, and everyone's looking at the same thing. Fundamentally, it's the same thing, but it's just slightly different perspectives. And what I kind of find with like fundamental like principles about human behavior and the way people think and that is that there's so many ways to describe it, but fundamentally they come back to the same thing, or the same core principles. And to me, I like that. That's what I'm interested in. I'm not interested in the minutia, unless it was my profession, right? In the minutia and all the specific, really, really intricate details, right? I just go, what is the 80 of the 80-20 rule? What's the 80 that I need to know? What's the 20 that I need to know to get me the 80? And we're talking about fundamental principles, then that's really what I'm. And to me, the thing that makes most sense when I think about everything is understanding the human needs that we all have. Those are fundamental human needs, and there's tons of different hierarchies. So pick your one; it doesn't matter. And how you spend money is in alignment with the attempt to meet your needs. How you spend your energy and your time, and then obviously there's all these beliefs and all that sort of stuff that tie into that. And that's a nice segue back into this, because I realized we've just gone on a fat tangent. But when we're on this at this workshop, one of the things that I've kind of noticed is that there's often a big gap. Classic. Again, quick tangent again. This book, Influence by Tali Sharot. I'm not sure where I've put it, but great book. One of the things that stuck with me with that was she was talking about the marshmallow experiment. Everyone's heard it. There's these kids and they give them marshmallows, say, hey, if you wait 5 minutes or 15 minutes, whatever it is, I'll come back and you can have 2 marshmallows. Don't touch it though. Rah, rah, rah. And then they came back, and the kids that ate the marshmallow, overwhelmingly, over the course of their future going forward, were not as successful in their endeavors in life, be it whatever they chose to do. And so cut and dry, willpower, discipline, that's the secret to success, because there's this evidence here. And I've just never really bought into that, and I just don't, I just it just doesn't make sense. Just grit your teeth harder. I don't know. And in Influence, finally, she talks about this other set of studies that followed about 20 years later from memory. This is what she said. It follows about 20 years later. It was a British group, and they took the studies and they took the same age sample kids, and what they did was they did the test with them again. But this time what they did is, before that, they made their future uncertain by for half the group they made a promise and they delivered on it. The other half, they made a promise but they didn't deliver on it. It was to do with crayons or something, right? So then they did the marshmallow test, and overwhelmingly the kids who had the uncertain future shown to them before the test failed. The kids who had the certain future shown to them, where the adults followed through, succeeded. And so really the whole thing is about discipline, is really more about trust than it is about discipline. It's more about, do I trust that the future is going to be secure? And if it is secure, well, then that's fine. I know that I'm going to get the marshmallow. But if it's not secure, well, then why would I take the risk? I'm going to have it now. And it's an implicit thing that runs in the back of our minds, right? And so anyway, I tell this to dial back to the workshop. Incredible content. These guys are masters at what they do. They're so good. But I often find that there's often the your mentality does need to change, your perspective does need to change, and all these sorts of things. But the advice usually stops at be disciplined, work hard, and make new habits. So even James Clear's book, there's a few, but Atomic Habits is a great book. And I think the reason why it works, and this is kind of echoed by Alex Hormozy, for instance, is his belief is that if you want to be able to change the future for yourself, you need to build an undeniable stack of proof that you do the new thing. Right. After a while, so for instance, it might be gymming. It might just be for the next 6 months, I'm just going to go to the gym. And after a while, 6 months in, you've got the absolute undeniable proof that you are someone who is a gym goer. You are healthy, you're fit and strong, and all this. And while I agree with that, I just don't see that. And this was kind of my issue with respect to health, was that in my mind, I was like, well, what's the point? Like, why would I bother? Why would I bother go flog myself out, get really sore and everything else when I'd rather spend that time in business and like I document all this earlier, and so you can go listen to those episodes if you want. And that was my whole thing. And ultimately, it got to the point that I was like, this was the ultimate question. It's so crazy, hey? Like, you have to ask the right questions. I got to the point that I was like, do I genuinely believe that my kids will be better off with the struggle of having to overcome the loss of a father due to ill health and early death? Or do I believe that my involvement and my influence in their life going forward is going to be of more value to them long term? And ultimately, I was like, well, of course. If I'm around, I believe over the next few years, I'm going to develop an immense body of wealth. I'm going to become wealth and wisdom, right? But I want to become someone who's wise, and I want to become someone who's wealthy, and then can transfer those skills to others who also want to go down that journey, right? And obviously, I want, whether my kids want this or not is irrelevant, but nonetheless, I want to be able to teach my kids how to do those things as well. And when I play it forward, I go, okay, so I'm 31 now. When I look at being, 60, 65, for the last probably like 5 years has been a baptism by fire by way of growth. And when I look at, okay, so add another 7 times that, compounding wealth and knowledge and wisdom and everything else, I don't want to have an early death. And I think that I can genuinely make an incredible impact on the lives of my kids. And to me, that was the switch. I was like, okay, if I do these things, if I'm healthy with my food, I'm diligent with my sleep, and I train my body and I train my mind, like, well, then I'm going to the future cannot be negative. And so for me, it was the point getting to where I was like, okay, well, I actually want. I trust that the future. I trust in the future, which is it's crazy that I didn't, right? And there was these lies and bullshit in the back of my mind that was just so subliminal I didn't even notice it. And so anyway, so I not to harp on, and the thing is as well, I don't want to just like go, oh yeah, well here's this little tiny speck of information from this workshop that wasn't right, fucking wah. Like, no, like these guys are brilliant, absolutely brilliant, and their structure and the resources they've got, and again, I've worked with a few coaches, and by far, these guys are the best coaching experience that Beck and I have had. So, cannot rate them enough. But I think, just habits and everything else, like unless the habits, and this is the issue that I've had before, is that I would want to implement new habits, but they come up against these deeply embedded values and they conflict, and I might be able to take my foot off the brake a little bit so I can get traction with those habits, but then the brake comes back on eventually. And for me, it was getting to the point of dissecting the lie that I've learned to tell myself so that I can then have trust in the future. And then when I did that, it was like the brake came off permanently, and I was like, all right, straight away into a 7-day fast. And then unfortunately I did have my vasectomy. It kind of like I couldn't really go, punch weights out and run 5Ks, but nonetheless, now I'm like, okay, like we're really diligent with our food. Beck's training with me now, which is amazing. Like ice baths again, and it's all stuff that I want to do. And it's not a burden, and it's not taxing. It's fun, and it's thrilling, and I feel amazing for it, and I feel I respect myself, which is really cool. And I love myself. It's, yeah, really, really cool. I love that. So, yeah, so anyway. Oh, yes, that's right. So so anyway, so I dove into Niro, and one of the things that came up was talking about habits. I was like, okay, well, where do habits fit, right? Because so there's an event that happens or an action you take, then, well, sorry, there's a trigger, right? And if it's not a habituated trigger, then you have a thought. Now that thought repeated becomes a story that you tell yourself, right? Or a thought on the action, perhaps. It becomes a story you tell yourself. The more often you tell that story, it becomes a belief. The more often you repeat that belief, well, then it becomes a value. And under beliefs and values, that's where your identity is built. That is also where your habits are. So, and I think that there's a quote by one of the Greek philosophers that says, the last half of it is effectively saying that, the whole quote is centered around the importance and the value of habits. Excellence is therefore a habit, not a choice. That's how the quote finishes, and I can't recall the first half of it. And I was going, okay, well, like, I do things habitually, which once upon a time were intentional. I had to actually think about doing these things, and now it's just habit. And also, my identity is built around the things that I do unconsciously and habitually, right? So, and I was saying to Niro, I was like, well, how does habits fit in? And that was my big question. So we kind of unpacked that a lot. And one of the things that came up, I remember how back in the day, because we were talking about, pain and pleasure, and there's that relationship that a lot of people are very familiar with. And with pain and pleasure, I can't remember the specific method he called it, but yeah, really interesting method. But it was something that I had just kind of, listen, I've been telling myself I'll work this out, but perhaps it was just something that I heard, and then it's kind of embedded itself, and then the thoughts come back up, and I think that I've come up with this or realized this on my own. Maybe, don't know. But nonetheless, it was about the value. Sorry, it's about feeling the gravity of the positive gain of taking or making a change, while also then feeling the gravity of not making the change and the negative outcome if you don't. And what I would do, I remember when I was like probably 15, 16, I would sit there, and the closest thing I can describe is this like meditation. I would just meditate and meditate on what my life would feel like until I felt the gravity, and I felt the emotion of the either positive or negative outcomes. And then it was like nearly always my behavior had changed. It was really, really cool. And so that was something that I've been wanting to do. And what actually on the back of that, I kind of made. I'm not a big fan of affirmations, because I feel like affirmations, for the most part, you're like trying to brainwash yourself into a new reality. There is some science that kind of backs that up a little bit, around I think it's Michigan University from memory. They did a whole study around thoughts that you think, and the culmination is that there's only really about 3% of the thoughts you think every day that are both, that are true, by whatever definition you want to call true, right? I understand that's ambiguous, but yeah. So that's interesting. So that's where I also think, okay, well, just saying that it's, having these thoughts, sometimes you do need to inject new thoughts. Sometimes you do need to brainwash yourself a little bit. But I think, and again, it goes back to this whole thing then, okay, what about useful belief? Or what does it matter what you believe? Truth is ambiguous. Belief is the thing that allows you to take action. And I've got this theory that I subscribe to the idea of useful belief, where I could choose. Okay, here's one. I could believe that Beck is going to look out for herself at my expense, and she's going to put herself first and not me, and not look after the kids, and and I could believe that. Or I could believe she's an incredible mother, and I could believe that she looks out for my kids, and she puts us first, and she's diligent, and she's caring and loving, and all these sorts of things. What's the useful thing to believe? Because both of them, you could twist the reality to see either. And the useful thing is, well, actually the most useful belief is to think, well, you know what, my wife is incredible, and I do love my wife. and I think she does put our kids forward, and to build your belief around the useful thing rather than the perhaps the default. And the thing is, I don't think that that is the appropriate tool in every sense, because I also think that there's a level of having to go, well, no, here's the fact, you're being an absolute piece of shit. Do I believe you're trying to? No, it's probably a coping mechanism that you've learned, which isn't healthy, but I'm not going to tolerate that. I'm sorry. So it doesn't mean that you ignore bad behavior, but I think that when it comes to trying to define truth over belief, pick the useful belief. So anyway, side note. So anyway, so that was a good meeting. Then after that, we are looking at expanding our propaganda into a second location. There's a couple of people I've spoken with about it, so no doubt Kalgoorlie being Kalgoorlie, the word's going to start spreading pretty quick. But just having a look at the leases around that, and just having a look at everything that's going on there, making sure that's all tidy, and just keeping it pretty clean and clear cut. So so that's that. Give me 2 seconds. I just need to take this call. So we've got another location opening up. The estimated date is around early September. That's when we're looking at our second location, and we are then we're just ironing out all the kinks. So we went and spoke to the landlord, or to the agent, the real estate agent, made sure that we kind of a few things we're a bit unsure about were all above board. So that was good. We'll just see how that goes. So, I mean, it's looking really promising, but obviously you don't want to count your chickens before they hatch, and there's a few things that we definitely need some clarity on before we can pull the trigger. So, then just went and did a bit of running around, came home, tidied up. And the cool part was we were able to spend some time just hanging out as a family. Sterling as well, and he just he's like crying and that, and we're trying to work out what's going on, and then we just kind of like leave him there around us, and he just wants to be around us. And going back to the whole thing around needs, like human needs, it's so interesting. Hey, even at the level of babies, they want connection. It's such a core fundamental human thing to have connection and relationship to people. Hey, and and to have him around. And, to see that that's really what he wanted. He didn't want to be held. He didn't want to, held, sure. He didn't want to be swaddled up, didn't want a dummy, didn't want to be fed. He didn't want a nap. He just wanted to be around everyone. It's so cool. That's really cool. So, and he just genuinely was laughing and having the time of his life, eh? So, and it's amazing that 2 months old, how he's already like that. And then so I kind of just wrapped up the day. So what I did was I started organising my calendar, and I've set... specifically, the first 4 hours of my work day is uninterrupted work, where I'm not, unless it's a very, very important meeting, and there's and they're over in the eastern states or something like that, and whatever. Unless there's a very, very good reason for it. My first 4 hours of my day is blocked out, and no one can touch that. And also, so Charlene, she's our administrator, and she's phenomenal. And I downloaded Google Tasks, and she can just assign tasks on there, and at the end of the day, I will slot those into the following day to be able to tackle then. So that way, when I start my day, I'll hit the gym, set up the morning with the kids and the family and everything else. They'll go do their thing, and then I get uninterrupted work where I get to actually tuck right into the things that matter most. And that's really cool. So it's been really enjoyable structuring the calendar like that, and setting those rules in place. So, looking forward to seeing what the next few months holds using that.